Long ago, under the brilliant blue sky of the Aegean, a revolutionary idea took root in a city of stone and sunlight. This was Athens, a place humming with the energy of sailors, philosophers, artisans. Here, two simple but powerful words were joined together: demos, kritos. When fused, they created democracy. It was a radical declaration. Ordinary people, not gods or kings, could govern themselves. The system born in Athens was a marvel of direct participation. In the public square and the agora on the Panyx, they were not representatives, they were the government itself. With a show of hands, these men decided matters of war and peace, approve laws, and even vote to exile leaders. A potter, a farmer, a wealthy aristocrat, all could speak, creating vibrant, often chaotic, political theater. The word demos did not, in practice, encompass everyone. Women were excluded from all political life. Enslaved people had no rights and no say in the city's governance. Medics, foreign-born residents, were also denied citizenship. The circle of power, while wider than ever before, was still a small and exclusive club of free, native-born men. Despite these profound limitations, the Athenian achievement was monumental. It established the foundational principle that sovereignty could reside with the citizenry. It proved that a state could function and even thrive without a hereditary ruler or a divinely appointed monarch. The ideas forged in the heat of Athenian debate, civic duty, public speech, and accountability were recorded by historians like Thucydides and dissected by philosophers like Plato, Aristotle. Though Athens would eventually fall and its unique democratic system would fade, the memory of what it accomplished would survive, preserved in ancient texts as a powerful and enduring legacy for future generations to rediscover. As the golden age of Athens waned, the shadow of a new power stretched across the Mediterranean: Rome. The Roman Republic, while not a direct democracy in the Athenian sense, built upon its intellectual inheritance, developing a complex system of governance based on law, based on representation, based on civic institutions. Power was theoretically shared among elected officials like the consuls and a powerful senate composed of the city's elite, creating vast legal frameworks like the 12 Tables aiming to apply the law equally to all citizens. This emphasis on a government of laws, not of men, introduced the idea that even the most powerful rulers must be constrained by established legal principles. The Roman Republic eventually gave way to the vast and autocratic Roman Empire. For centuries after its fall, Europe was dominated by feudal monarchies, where the will of kings and lords was absolute. Yet the classical ideals of law and citizen rights were never entirely extinguished. They lay dormant in monasteries, they lay dormant in universities, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge. That moment arrived in the year 1215 on a meadow at Runnymede in England. There, a group of rebellious barons forced the tyrannical King John to affix his seal to a document that would change the world: the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta was not a democratic manifesto in the modern sense. It was primarily concerned with protecting the privileges of the nobility. However, embedded within its 63 clauses were revolutionary principles that would resonate far beyond their original intent. The charter declared that no free man could be imprisoned or punished without a lawful judgment by his peers, establishing the concept of due process. Most importantly, it asserted that the king himself was not above the law. This was a monumental shift in political thought, a direct challenge to the doctrine of divine right, and a foundational step toward constitutional government and the limitation of executive power. Over subsequent centuries, the spirit of the Magna Carta slowly seeped into the political consciousness of England and the wider world. It inspired the development of Parliament as a representative body that could check the power of the monarch, and that all individuals possessed certain fundamental rights that could not be arbitrarily taken away, began to take hold. The seeds planted in Athens and nurtured in Rome had now broken through the hard soil of medieval feudalism, preparing the ground for even more radical transformations to come. The intellectual fire that the Magna Carta had helped to spark grew into a blazing inferno during the 17th century and the 18th century, an era known as the Enlightenment across Europe, philosophers and writers began to rigorously question long-held traditions of absolute monarchy and religious dogma. In England, John Locke argued that all individuals possess natural rights to life, liberty, property. Locke said governments are formed by the consent of the governed to protect these rights. If a government failed this sacred duty, the people had the right to alter or abolish it. This was a seismic intellectual shift, reframing the relationship between the state and the individual. In France, thinkers like Montesquieu advocated for a separation of powers within government, proposing authority be divided into legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch. Each branch would act as a check on the others to prevent any single entity from becoming too powerful. Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote about the social contract, popular sovereignty, famously declaring, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." These ideas circulated in books, pamphlets, Parisian salons, creating a powerful vocabulary of liberty, equality, justice that would soon inspire revolutionary action. The first great political explosion, fueled by these ideas, occurred across the Atlantic Ocean. In 1776, American colonists, feeling their rights as Englishmen had been violated by a distant king and parliament, issued the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration echoed Locke. All men are created equal and endowed with unalienable rights. After a long war, the United States created a constitution that put Enlightenment theory into practice. Separation of powers, checks and balances, and a Bill of Rights. Just a few years later, in 1789, the revolutionary spirit erupted in France. Inspired by the American example and incensed by years of royal extravagance and social inequality, the French people rose up to dismantle their ancient monarchy. The French Revolution was more violent and tumultuous, but its cry of liberté, égalité, fraternité resonated across the globe. It championed the universal rights of man and declared that sovereignty belonged to the nation as a whole. Together, the American and French revolutions marked a turning point, transforming democracy from a philosophical ideal into a tangible, world-changing political force. Section 4. The modern democratic experiment. The 19th and 20th centuries witnessed the painstaking and often turbulent expansion of the democratic project across the globe. The revolutions of the late 1700s had lit a beacon. Peoples in Europe and the Americas fought to secure written constitutions, establish representative parliaments, broaden the franchise. This was a slow, incremental struggle, fought not only on battlefields but also in union halls, on picket lines, and town squares. The very definition of the people continued to expand. Movements for universal male suffrage and later, the tireless campaigns of suffragettes demanded that the promise of democracy be extended to all, regardless of class or gender. This era saw the development of the core institutions that we now associate with modern liberal democracy. The secret ballot was introduced to protect voters from intimidation. Political parties emerged to organize competing ideologies and offer voters clear choices. An independent judiciary was recognized as essential for upholding the rule of law and protecting constitutional rights from the whims of powerful leaders or temporary majorities. The principle of a free press, able to investigate the government and inform the public without fear of censorship, became a cornerstone of democratic accountability. However, the path of democracy was not one of uninterrupted progress. The 20th century in particular presented grave challenges as new, toxic ideologies rose to threaten its very existence. Fascism, Nazism, communism. The world was plunged into devastating conflicts, and for a time, it seemed that the democratic experiment might fail. Yet, from the ashes of two world wars, democracy re-emerged, strengthened in its resolve and adopted by nations in Europe and beyond, including former colonial territories that fought for their own independence and self-determination. Today, in the early 21st century, democracy exists in a vast and diverse array of forms. Some nations operate as parliamentary systems, others as presidential republics. Some have federal structures, while others are unitary states. Yet they share common aspirational threads: the regular holding of free and fair elections, the protection of fundamental human rights, and the acceptance of the rule of law. The journey from the Pnyx Hill in Athens has been long and winding, but its core principle has endured, adapted, and spread, creating a global community of nations founded on the belief that power ultimately rests with the people they are meant to serve. Section 5. The Unfinished Journey. Our Enduring Responsibility. We stand today on January 2nd, 2026 as inheritors of this long, arduous, and magnificent story. The journey of democracy, from its nascent form in Athens to its complex global presence, is a testament to the enduring human desire for freedom, dignity, and self-determination. The baron who challenged a king, the suffragette who faced imprisonment for the right to vote, the civil rights activist who marched for equality, the citizen who simply shows up to cast a ballot. This legacy is not an ancient monument to be admired from a distance. It is a living, breathing entity that requires constant care. The rapid spread of misinformation and disinformation across digital networks can erode the shared basis of fact. The immense influence of money in politics threatens to drown out the voices of ordinary citizens. A growing political polarization can transform political opponents into enemies, making compromise nearly impossible. These forces test the resilience of our democratic institutions and demand a renewed commitment from all who value them. The survival and flourishing of democracy is not guaranteed. It is not a final destination, but a continuous process each generation must advance. It depends on the courage of an independent press to hold power to account. It relies on the integrity of our judicial systems to apply the law without fear or favor. It requires educational institutions that teach democracy's history and critical thinking skills. Ultimately, the fate of democracy rests in the hands of the people. It is exercised in the voting booth. It is exercised in community meetings. It is exercised in peaceful protests. It is exercised in letters to elected officials. It is exercised in the simple act of listening respectfully to a neighbor with a different point of view. The story of democracy is not over. We are writing its next chapter right now. Let us remember the struggles of those who came before us. Let us embrace our shared responsibility to protect, perfect, and pass on this precious inheritance. The power is still ours, if we choose to use it well.